Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we're talking about something that came up in the Discord the other day. The topic of what truly gives a D&D campaign meaning. And I wanted to talk about this because I think this is a really good question. This was brought up by Dirty Socks, I believe, was the one who was talking about this. And what gives D&D meaning? Like, what makes it special? Okay. Now, we all know that we like to have a game with good rules, efficient, smooth gameplay. We like to have cohesiveness, consistency in the rules and in how the game is run. These are things that the Game Master can do to help make the game better. This is pretty obvious. The better you get at doing that, you're going to get really close. But I don't think that's what generates the most meaning. Sure, that's like a foundational building block, but it's not the most important thing, okay? Another thing is scheduling, actually. Like scheduling, having consistent sessions and that kind of thing, and basically showing up ready and prepared. So it's kind of like an organizational community leadership scheduling skill set. So you could have a great game master, and I've known game masters like this. You can have a great game master, but then an hour before D&D comes around, they might just randomly text everyone and cancel the session. And you kind of know that's going to happen 50% of the time, so you can almost never really plan on actually doing it. This is something that can take away from it. Now, I understand people get busy and stuff, but I'm just saying that this does take away from the meaning of the campaign. And having that in place is a foundational building block to creating meaning. I don't think it's the most important thing. I'm going to save that here for later. But I do believe that that is a foundational building block of creating meaning in the game. What is another important thing? Another important thing is just being a kind and genuinely good individual. It's going to be hard to create meaning in a game if you don't like any of the people you're gaming with, if they're not friendly, if they're not good people. This is going to be difficult, I think. The thing about TTRPGs and D&D and other TTRPGs is that they are collaborative, intellectual, storytelling, ephemeral art constructs. Okay, so we're creating them, and they exist in the realm of imagination, and they are like a work of art, but they do not last forever. They leave almost as soon as they're created, with the exception of the memories that's left behind, or if you film it or something, then that's a little different. But the idea is that we're creating ephemeral, intellectual art collaboratively when we're running a game. And so having that camaraderie with the other players is really important. Being able to work together, being able to communicate, and just being able to be decent humans together is, I would say, a foundational part of making D&D meaningful. But it is not the only thing that makes D&D meaningful. There is another thing that's more important, but we're going to get to that here in a minute. I also want to discuss being able to role play together and having that kind of cohesion and chemistry. So I'm playing in a game on Sunday nights with Dungeons and 20s. William is the game master, really great game master, and there's a role player in that game named Waz, and me and him, I would say, are pretty in-depth role players. And in the last session, we had this situation where our characters sort of came to a head in a way. There was party conflict for a lot of reasons, storyline, story-driven kind of reasons, and I always value these types of interactions when they can happen, and then in the game they can be serious, right? There can be gravity, there can be emotion, but then above table they are not taken so seriously, and everyone can stay they can be in character, but then they can also be above table, understanding, oh, this person isn't really out to get me or really being a jerk. They're just role-playing their character, and having that understanding. I have seen at the table players who have gotten angry over things that go on in-game, and they get angry in real life. And I think that this is a bit of this isn't the worst problem you could ever have, because the truth is, if people care that much about in-game things that they're getting mad out of game, then at least they care about the game, which is kind of a weird thing to say. It's worse for friendships, but better for immersive gameplay, if that's the direction you're going in. The truth is, the alternative would be nobody cares about anything. And that's a pretty crappy game to have to try to salvage. So You know, the truth is you're kind of going in a better direction if people care so much about the game that they get mad at each other, but then getting mad at each other is a problem, and that takes away from the meaning, because then you walk away with these negative feelings instead of the fulfillment of creating what you were creating, right? Now, I know a lot of people don't subscribe to this idea of creating intellectual art. Some people are like, dude, you're overthinking this. I just want to hang out with my friends and play D&D and do fantasy stuff and cast spells. And that's totally fine. I'm not trying to invalidate that experience, but I do believe, and I subscribe to this very seriously, and I don't think it's for everyone, but I do believe in this. I believe that TTRPGs can be more than a game. I think that they can transcend game to become an experience of shared art creation, of ephemeral intellectual art. And I believe that this can be a very intentional and serious and focused process. And I think that we can create art that is very meaningful. And I think that when you have gaming experiences that have led to you, you know, basically remembering fondly things that happened in a game you once played in, and you recall those stories and you're laughing about them, or they are touching moments, or they're meaningful or very epic, then you have actually taken part in the creation of intellectual art with the rest of the table. I believe that that's evidence that you have succeeded in that, and that's what I mean by that. But being able to roleplay cohesively with people and actually have them care and actually not be jerks to each other and get mad about in-game stuff is pretty essential, I would say, to making the game more meaningful, because it won't cloud everything with these negative memories. And that's another foundational building stone. I don't think that's the thing that makes D&D the most meaningful. I don't think it is. Now, here's another thing that is a cornerstone pillar of TTRPGs that makes them more meaningful, and that is shared time with good people. Community, right? So it is a community-based activity. You're probably going to have 2 or more people interacting to make this activity a thing. And so you have this situation where you are literally communing with other people. A lot of people will, you know, have snacks together. A lot of people will make it like a ritual where they will get together and they will basically not only engage in the activity of the TTRPG, but they will also engage in friendship and relationships. And you invariably are almost bound to become friends with the people you roleplay with. If you are roleplaying with good people and you want to keep roleplaying, generally that also means you're going to kind of become friends with them. That's not always true. That is not always true. But I would say 95% of the time that is true. And that does create meaning for the game. That does create meaning for the table. And so that is a very powerful, positive ingredient to this business of creating meaning around the table. But I would not say, once again, that it is the most meaningful thing. When the question is, what truly gives a D&D campaign meaning, I'm going to say that this is actually it. And I want you to leave a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me. I think what truly gives D&D or any TTRPG meaning is the sense of believability that will allow for immersion. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. If the circumstances are so, you can kind of be non-distracted, you can be focused, you can be in tune with the other role players, and you can be engaging in this game session, this art creation sessions, collaborative storytelling session, to a point where you can buy into it and you find it believable. Like, obviously, I don't really believe that I'm a paladin on a crusade for my god, but if I'm playing one in the game, I want it to make sense in the context of that game. I want the immersion. In fact, let me do something quick. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to look up. I want to look up the definition of the word immersion, because I think this is actually really important. I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me do this. We're going to see what it says. In TTRPGs, immersion refers to the player's deep mental and emotional involvement in the game world, where the boundary between the player and their characters begins to blur. When immersion is strong, players experience the story, setting, and events as if they were truly living them through their character's eyes. Right? And so this is the mind's eye. Key features of immersion: emotional engagement. Players feel excited, fear, sadness, or triumph in response to in-game events. This is very true. Mental presence. Players are mentally focused on the game world, not distracted by out-of-game concerns. world belief. The setting and narrative feel internally consistent and believable, making it easier to buy into the fiction. So this is very similar to what I was saying, but it's a little bit better worded. Immersion can be fostered by vivid descriptions and sensory detail, strong player-character connections, in-character roleplay and dialogue, meaningful choices and consequences, a consistent tone or atmosphere, avoiding meta-talk and out-of-character interruptions. In short, immersion is what makes a session feel real in the minds and hearts of the players. It's the magic that transforms dice rolls and rulebooks into living stories. Boom! I think that was said very well. I think ChatGPT did a great job describing that. Probably a better job than I did. So I think that immersion is the most important thing that makes D&D the most meaningful. I think that if you are not achieving immersion in description, like by the description I just read to you, then you're missing out on a massive part of what makes it meaningful. And even if you have all those other building blocks in place, that game is going to lack the fire that the game could have, that players are going to experience when they're taking part in a game that does have that full immersive quality to it. And that's what I think about that. Leave a comment, like I said, and let me know what you think about that. Let me know if you think that's the most important thing, or if you think one of the other things I mentioned was more important, or if you think that there's an element that maybe is even more important that I didn't mention. Let me know. I would love to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. Make sure to watch some more of my awesome videos, and hey, I will see you awesome people on the next one.